I've been to a lot of gyms, and for sure, your gym is my favorite. What would you say that separates?
Vibe. Vibe, baby, vibe. When you walk into my place, you know that this place is built and it's conducive to results. Everybody's fucking working. Young, old, man, women, big box gyms, the LA Fitnesses, the U-Fits, the Planet Fitnesses, they're the complete opposite of me. I have meetings every day, and we say in these meetings, what can we do to change these people's lives? And you know what they do? They have meetings to say, how can we sell memberships? And lots of them, but they don't come and use the gym. Go and visit as many gyms as you want. Go in, get a free workout, and try out the gym. And then when you're done looking at all those gyms, take a step back and ask yourself one question. Which gym is gonna put me in the position to get the results that I want to get? They're gonna come back to mine because we have that vibe.
Johnny, thanks for coming on, man. Super excited to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here, fellas. Always a pleasure.
Figure we'll start by tell us a little bit about yourself, and I want to talk about how we met, actually.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Johnny Olsen. I'm owner of Johnny Olsen Gymnasium, Boca Raton.
Best gym in Boca?
Yeah, that's what I think. We are really the only real indoor-outdoor gym. Mm-hmm. We've got 10,000 square feet outdoors covered by an awning. We've got field turf. We've got sleds and ropes and tires and weights and treadmills and bicycles and rowers and skiers and squat racks and cold plunge and everything outside. So you live in Florida, you want to be outside. That's why a lot of us, why we move here. So you get the ability to work out inside or outside or do a combination of it. We've got, we're great with group classes, and all of our classes are done outside. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. The one class we did come to, you definitely whipped my ass. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, dude, I want to, so how we met at Carlton's party over in Boca. I don't think I ever told you the story, but so it was me and Kyle, we were doing the interviews. We were pulling people in the back, remember? For Carlton.
Or Ryan.
Or me and Ryan, yeah. And so remember I was walking around the party, and every step you took, like someone was like, Johnny, you know, like yelling your name, and I was like, I have to go figure out who that is. I got to go talk to that guy. And yeah, we just hit it off immediately.
Yeah, right away. It did. It took us a long time to go a short distance. Yeah, I remember that night. And then we did a little interview, and then when I went back out, my wife said, "Where did you go?"
It was a 30-minute process, literally, to film and then back to film.
We had fun, though. It was a good night, huh?
That was a good night. I did drink a little bit too much there.
Yeah, well, it's easy to when you're at one of Carlton's parties, right?
Yeah.
You went to the Christmas party. What was that like?
Every one of his parties is great. That dude knows how to put on a party, bro.
He's been doing it for years and years.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. I'm interested how somebody like you stays not only consistent with your workout plan, but you've been shredded for what at this point, 55 years, 60 years? Like dialed, looking good, feeling good for how many years?
1971.
1971
is when I began. And 72, now I grew up outside of Boston, and looking back, I really was ahead of my time in certain ways. And I didn't learn this until probably 5 or 6 years ago when I went home to visit my mother, and I went to the laundry room, which was also my weight room, and I closed the door because I remember I used to keep all my workouts thumbtacked up on the door, and lo and behold, they're still there, man, from 1973. And I wrote everything down, and I could go back and see the goals, the gains I made, and how much I lifted, how many reps. I can't believe that I was doing that back then, but I did. And I think, you know, growing up at that time, it was easy to get into things because there wasn't a lot of things to do. There was literally 5 channels on TV. We had the 3 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and we had 2 channels that were UHF, that were local broadcasting, and you had to get up and physically change the channel. And there wasn't a lot on. And like midnight, 1 a.m., if you stayed up long enough, they would say, all right, that concludes our broadcast for the day. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And the station would go off.
Yeah.
And then it would come back on. So we read books. We were outside. We did things all the time. And it was really professional wrestling, watching professional wrestling and seeing some of the guys that were big and working out. And I'm like, man, those guys look good. I want to look like that. And my mother bought us a weight set, my brother and I, a weight set for Christmas, and we quickly outgrew that. And then we added to it from a yard sale of some people down the street from us. And I think we paid $5 for whatever amount of weights were, and it took my brother and I 2 or 3 trips to bring them from the yard sale back to our house. And I was hooked. I was just hooked. And in order to learn, the only way you learned back then was from magazines and books. And I started getting into Olympic weightlifting. And I entered a contest, which was a Junior Olympics. And I did weightlifting. I think I was 148 pounds. It was my class.
How old were you?
It was February of '75. And I was 2 months before my 15th birthday. So I was 14 years old, and I won a silver medal. And I learned how to do the lifts. It was the snatch and the clean and jerk. I learned how to do it through a book I took out of the library and didn't return for about 6 months. And I literally learned how to do the snatch watching a Bulgarian weightlifter. And they did the snapshots of him doing a lift where they hold the shutter down and went, clicked on it. And I would watch every single frame, and I would go through every frame. And I would watch it from like the knees down, every one. And then I would go for like 10 times. And then I would go from like knees to waist. And I did this process over and over and over. And that's how I learned how to do it. There was no coaches. There were no... The gyms were few and far between, and I wasn't able to get to any of them. And in order to do enter the contest, you had to mail out for an application. They would mail you back. I mean, it was a whole different era back then. And,
so you had to really want it.
You didn't have a lot of other things going on. Today, the same kids that were my age then, they literally have 1,000 channels to watch on TV, and the streaming and the games and the video games, and there's so many different things. There's so much that will take your attention away from what you might should be focusing on. And so that was it, and I did that. And growing up in Boston, I was just there this past weekend. It was 16 degrees to 22 degrees while I was there. And so you're not outside as much as you are when you're down here. I tell people all the time, when you live in Florida, you live more. So that was what I got into, and I was just into it. And I played football in high school and did some track, and it was fun, and I really got into the working out. So I started doing 2-a-days while I was in school. I'd get up early. I'd go into the garage. We shifted from the laundry room to the garage, and man, it was cold. So in the winter, I'd have to wear gloves just to work out. And I'd come home from school and I'd work out again. So I was really into it, and I did some bodybuilding shows my senior year in high school as well. And I had to go to Connecticut to do that. So, and you had to learn on the fly, man. It was just, that's just how it was.
Yeah. Something you said I want to kind of double tap on. How much do you think that like the technology we have like directly correlates to just how out of shape like most of the country is now. Do you think it's how much you think that plays a role?
I'm not sure how it plays a role because I never really thought about it. I was just thinking of my goals and doing that. But I took a trip in high school, not right around the time I won that silver medal in the Olympics. My dad, there's another funny story, but Sundays we would get the Boston Globe. We'd get it every day. And the paper was this thick. And we didn't have much to do. We would read the paper. And the travel section in the winter, which talked about Jamaica and Bermuda and St. Martin, we always want to look at that and kind of think about it. So my father was looking at it one day, and he picks up the phone, he dials this number, and he says, "Hey, I'm calling about this ski trip to Switzerland and France." And he's on the phone for about 2 minutes, and he hangs up. He says, You're going to France skiing in February vacation." And I'm like, okay. And, you know, a few months later, I went there and I called up a friend of mine. I said, "Well, I don't want to go alone." I called up a friend of mine and I said, "Monk, I'm going skiing in France in February. You want to come with me?" And he says, "Hold on. Ma, Johnny Olsen's going to France skiing in February. Can I go?" "Okay, yeah. All right, I'm in." "Okay, great. I'll see you tomorrow." Click. And, you know, I think it cost $500 for the flight, for the ski ticket and the hotel. And me and my buddy went to France skiing. And I went and we skied, but we were in this village. And I remember that there was some really heavy people. And I could hear the French people yelling out, "American, American," because they were obese and no one over there was obese except Americans. So it was something that kind of hit me when they said that. I said, yeah, they're probably from America, you know? But the funny part of that story is years later, when my father passed, I told that story when I gave his eulogy. And then after, so many people came up to me after at the breakup dinner, and they're like, "I can't believe you just went to France like that." And they said it like third or fourth time someone said it to me. I finally thought about it. I said, "Yeah, I guess that was a big deal," but it never felt like a big deal. 14, 15 years old, going to France, and you get off the plane, you're not calling home and saying, "Ma, I got here okay," because you wouldn't even know how to make a phone call. They dropped me off at Logan Airport. They said, "We'll see you in 2 weeks." And that was it. And I went and came back. Never thought it was out of place in any way until 2017 when my dad died. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. And that led to a, 15-year professional bodybuilding career?
Can I tell you something? Somehow, just remembering this now, before I went over there, I looked up different places where I could find weights to go and work out. And all of the people that were doing weightlifting over there at that time, that's all they were doing was Olympic weightlifting. And I went to some place, it was like a school gym or something, and I was able to work out one day. I haven't thought about that in ages, but that happened there too. But fitness has been in my blood since the early 1970s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long were you you did professional bodybuilding, right? Like the NPC and
I won a pro card in physique, in men's physique, but I've competed over all those years approximately 23 to 25 times.
What's the hardest part of a bodybuilding prep?
For me, the first week. The first week, once you identify a show you're going to do, and that first week is the toughest because you have to just get onto your diet, and you go from 3 meals to 5 meals, and you know everything just intensifies. But honestly, after that first week, you're in it. You're in it. And when you break down what you do to compete, and I'm talking about from not just the working out part. You know, I was normally at the gym, every day, usually twice a day. But not only going to the gym and the training, but the driving back and forth, the preparing of your meals, the shopping for your meals, the posing, everything that you have to do, you're looking at 24, 26 hours a week to do that. So it's intense, but you get to that point where you want it, you know, you're going after a goal. When you sign up for anything in life, whether it's a 3-month course to learn something new for helping your business or going to college, you have to embrace what's in front of you. And when you embrace it and accept it, you're going to have a much better chance of succeeding. But if you go in and you're kind of half in and half out, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to, might not have that same ability to succeed like that. So I never, looking back at all of my shows, it was never really hard for me. And a lot of the times what would happen with me is I would choose to do a show just to prove to myself that I could do it again. And I'm kind of, a friend of mine, John Hansen, who's a bodybuilder, but we've been friends for many years, and he's a legend in the field and a historian, bodybuilding historian. He's doing a show on Saturday, and he's been out of it for 5 or 6 years, and he's making me think about coming back and doing it again. But just so like I can know that I can do it again, because when my last competition was in October of 2018. And after that, I started opening up Johnny O's, and I was really busy with it. And I had a bad back injury that was getting worse and worse every month for 2 years until I had surgery. And I met this guy who was a very successful bodybuilder years ago, but he's retired. And he says, once you retire and you're done, he says, it's so hard to get that back again. And he's been right. So I want to possibly do something just so I can prove to myself that I can do it. Because it's not about competing against the other people.
I was just going to ask this.
As much as it is about competing against yourself.
The motivation behind bodybuilding has always interested me because of that fact. I've always grown up in team sports, football, wrestling, I guess a little bit, but there's this mano-a-mano, it's us versus them, or it's me versus this other person, and it's this very primal competitive environment. When you're doing something like bodybuilding, it's a completely different game because, number one, you actually, you know, same with powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, you have zero control how your competition shows up.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, you don't even have a control of, you know, they could be genetically just a beast. They could have the perfect attachments with their muscles and everything like that. For me, I'd always see that as being like a, you know, a punch to the motivation of like wanting to do something like that, because I get a lot of my energy off of competing against somebody or something. How staying consistent for 20 shows, building this bodybuilding career, how did you consistently stay motivated to want to show up again and go on stage and put yourself through what it genuinely takes to be a pro level bodybuilder?
Several things. One of the things is that you never want somebody to walk up to you and say, "Are you still working out?" Okay, and you know you're never going to be the way you are when you get on stage, but you still want to look good. You want to feel good, and it's been a part of my life for so long that you want to hang on as much as you can, and you want to stay fit as long as you can, because that's how everyone's known you. Well, for me, for decades is that you know, I'm the guy that's always been in shape, and you don't want to give that up, you know? So that's a big factor in it. But a lot of it is that self-challenge. And the other thing is we do things. We all do things in life every day and don't think about them. And someday something happens and all of a sudden you say, wow, this is something that I do, and they're making a big deal out of it. Probably one of the greatest compliments I ever got was I was training a dude who was playing for the Steelers, and he went to the University of Virginia, great guy, lives in Miami now, and he was working with me with strength and conditioning and my buddy Willie Randolph on the track part of things, and he did track as well at University of Virginia. So we were working out, we're maybe 2 weeks into it, and he was doing what I was doing. So I would create the workouts, but I would do them and he would follow me. So we were about, I don't know, quarter of the way through a workout one time, and he finishes his set, and I was just kind of walking by him, and he puts the weights down and goes, man, I haven't felt like this since the University of Virginia. And I said, bro, you play for the Steelers. He goes, we don't train this hard in Pittsburgh. And I'm thinking,
Pittsburgh too, Steel City?
Yeah, exactly, bro. Which means that's one of the teams where you say, those guys, no one's outworking them. And he says to me, dude, we don't work this hard in Pittsburgh. And I kind of walk away and I'm like, this is Tuesday. This is nothing. This is my everyday. And it never dawned on me that this level was the level that I was at. You know, it was just what I did.
So the process really never seems to be a challenge. Like, I think most people, when they hear about working out, the momentum part of it, I think, is the hardest part for anybody. For you, it would almost be weird to not train that way or train every day or whatever the schedule ends up being. Most people, they can't even get that first start. I'm interested to know, coming off of something that is so much about like your physique and getting to these peak moments of physique where you have literally never looked better. How, when you have to come off of that, because obviously that's unhealthy being at that physique, mentally, how do you deal with having to maintain a look, a feel that isn't what you know to be your peak?
So I think this happens to a lot of people. You're at your peak and you don't know it. You don't know it until it's over. And then and in fact, if someone comes up to you the day you're in your peak and they say, Johnny, you look great, man. You know what my response is going to be? I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I still got more to go. And then a year or 2 or 5 or 10 years go by and you go, man, I'd like to be back at that fucking spot again. But I remember saying, I'm not, I have more in me. And it's funny that you asked that question because you have no idea. I see 200 people every day come through my gym, 200-300 people. And I'll go up to people that look good, look great, men, women, younger, older, and I'll say, you look amazing. And every time their response is the same thing. I still have more. I need to get better. I'm trying. I'm getting better. And then if you said something like that same thing to somebody that really doesn't look that great, they're going to say, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And they don't understand, you know, you're being nice, but they need more. The people that really look great, they're in that zone. They're right there. When you say it, they don't know it. And they will, too, be where I was, where you look back and say, I remember that. And I wasn't happy then. Man, would I love to be back at that point now.
I think that's the mindset of an artist. at the end of the day. Like, I think bodybuilding is an art form in a certain capacity, even just wanting to be aesthetically in shape. It's called aesthetics for a reason. It's a look, it's a feel. And then when you're talking about an truly great artist, they can look at their best work and pick it apart piece by piece. And I think that's, this whole show is about high performers. Like, I think that's a dichotomy to be managed at the end of the day, because what makes greatness great is the fact that there is no ceiling. There is no, hey, it can't get any better than this. So even when you are in your prime, you're in your peak, the business has never been better, you're still going to pick apart 5 to 6 reasons why it's not where it should be or why it could be better. How do you manage?
That's what makes greatness. That's what makes greatness. Is because you're never satisfied. You're always looking for more. And it doesn't matter if you're right about the artist. It doesn't matter if you're a chef, if you're a graphic designer, if you're working out, a football player, it doesn't matter.
Do you think that's something that you're born with or something that you can grow into?
I think it's a combination. So, I was around the Boza boys, Nick and Joey, when they were little. I mean, little. And I remember Joey was 3 years old, and I was at his house, and his father picks him up and just scooped him up. He was wearing a Speedo, and he was ripped at 3. And he lifts him up, and your brain sometimes doesn't think as fast as your vision and what you're seeing. He scooped him up, and in one motion, he chucks him over this little fence, preventing people from going into the pool, and throws him right in the pool. No life jacket, nothing. And I'm like, I'm watching, and he starts swimming, and he goes right over to the ladder and climbs out like nothing. And I'm like speechless. I couldn't understand it. Well, fast forward a few years, not that many. And I was minding them. The parents went away, and I was minding them. And I took them to the track. And Joe was 7, 8 years old, maybe. And we go to the track. And I said, all right, Joey, you're up. One lap around. Absolutely no hesitation. But he's wearing like these high-top Jordans, barely tied. And all right, go. And I hit the timer. He goes around the track, and he finishes. I don't remember the time. All I know is he walks over. He says, what was the time? And I looked at my watch, and I told him. And he says, drops his head. He goes, let's do it again. And he had no idea. That could have been a record time for someone his age. He had no idea, nor did I. But it didn't matter. It wasn't enough. He was 7. And we did it again. But so when you just said, are you born with it? That dude was born with a lot. But clearly he worked on his talents. I mean, he's a special. They're both very special.
That kind of like parenting. So like I think you see a lot less of that today, where like you're really pushing your kid into something, right? Whether he's playing a sport like football and he's 10 and he wants to quit, but you don't let him. And like you're talking about with the Bosas, like the way they train their kids from so young. I feel like you don't see that anymore, and I feel like that's very looked down upon now. What are your thoughts on it? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Because to me, from what you see is like you talk about guys like the Bosas and like Tiger Woods and all these like the greats, the best at what they do. They all have that same story growing up. What do you think about that parenting style?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple things that go into it. I think if the parent is doing that and the kid is responding to it, he's accepting it, he's buying into it, then it's a great thing. But sometimes parents that they have their kids that they want them to be that athlete, but they're not that athlete, and they don't want that. They want something else. I think it's good that you've tried it, but let's take that same discipline and hard work and sacrifice and move it into a different direction. And when you can do that, it's still good that you've taught them that. But you said it's sometimes not looked upon in a good way. there's a lot of people that are into, we're not into competition for our kids. They're too young. We're not into competition. Well, guess what? It don't matter what you think. These kids all have something in them that they are competitive. And I see it. I see it. I've got 5 grandkids now. And my oldest grandson, Bronson, he was at my gym a lot. And we had some kids classes. And I put him up against kids. He started at 3 years old, 4 years old. And he's running and doing obstacle courses and things like that. And every single race, Mike, every single race, when they're running, they're doing this. And they're looking. They're seeing how far behind are they. They want to win at 3 years old. So don't tell me about competition. It's inbred in them from the day they're born. And it's there for all of us. And I think it's a healthy thing.
I think I have this assumption, because you have professional athletes, these people that have this born in them, and it's allowed to breathe. It's allowed to be explored. It's allowed to be kind of figured out. Like what you're talking about with Joey Bosa's parents. It's like they have to accept the fact that their kid is special, and they have to identify that and then be willing to let them live their life in both cases, whether they have it or they don't. But I think the people that have it with parents that don't allow them to discover that and allow them to lean into that, and they're told that that's wrong, I think that's what forms a lot of addictive patterns. Because what you have is you have this internal, innate, not like it's born in, like everybody I think in this room has it born in them where they want that, they want to be great.
Yeah.
But all we're done, like if you're in an environment where that's not allowed to flourish and that's not allowed to grow, and you're not allowed to be accepted as, a hardcore competitor, somebody that wants to drive to be great at something, it creates this, there's something wrong with me. I'm too intense. I'm too this. I'm too that. And then how do you counteract that? Drugs, alcohol. Like you try to change your state. And then you have these people that have that same competitive greatness that Joey Bosa had, but it is put into something completely different, like getting dope or whatever it ends up being. Like you will take that same drive, that same energy, that same habit, the need to do something every single day, and you'll chase the wrong thing. It's you created a life in your world where there was only one way out, and it was through exercise. It was through these types of things. I'd love to get your thoughts on that though.
It's something that is there. And I think what happens, everything you said, I agree with, but what makes somebody go instead of the alcohol and drugs is an outsider. So the parents have put them into that position where they're facing these two roads. One is going to be a negative one, drugs and alcohol, and not getting positive reinforcement, not doing the good things. And another one's going to be the positive one. And that's where young coaches that work with kids make a difference. If you watch the NFL Hall of Fame inductions, they're all talking about their coach from 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, high school. It's those guys that volunteer or get paid almost nothing to put in all those hours to help change lives. And sometimes the parents might think they're saying the right thing, but they're not. And they need to be around the right people in order to change that direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At any age though, because I think people that will listen to this now will go, well, I'm not Joey Bosa. I wasn't 8 years old getting up, getting after it. But you'd be surprised if you looked at your, evidence that you've given yourself, if you are this person that we're talking about, which I think most people innately might be. I think most people want to conquer. Most people want to achieve. Most people want to do these things. You can change the direction of your entire life by just proving to yourself that you're somebody that you actually are. If you lean into that, if you get a win. One of the examples Joe Rogan talks about, for most of his life, he looked at himself as a loser until he found martial arts. And martial arts was the first time in his life where he proved to himself that he could win at something.
Yeah.
And that, what was Joe Rogan the greatest martial artist ever? No. But what did that turn into? That turned into discipline, hard work, effort, and all of those intangibles applied to any area in life. Like, that's where you see success.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. In fact, it's funny. I heard him recently say how martial arts, every kid should get into it. So clearly it had a big effect on him. And my guess is that it took him years to realize it after he was doing it, and probably didn't enjoy going sometimes. But in the end, it worked out.
If 2025 is the year that Johnny O returns to the stage, what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge now compared to when you were doing it growing up?
The discipline, bro. The discipline. So when I spoke earlier about my back injury, it was bad, and it turned out to be a cyst on my spine that was laying. The cyst was on a nerve, and I found the greatest doctor who basically really saved my life. He gave me my life back, because all the joy that I had in my life and working out and cooking and traveling and running and everything was gone. It was going away. And I'm thinking, you know, what do I got left? 20 years, 20 good years. They're not going to be good like this. And everywhere I went, it was pain throughout the day. And prior to that, I kept doing what I was doing, and it was my life, and I just never thought about it. So I would get up 5 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd go to the track. And I'd run sprints. Tuesday, Thursday in the mornings, I would do the elliptical machine and do 45 minutes, 35 to 45 minutes, hood on, music, eyes closed, just going. No eye contact with nobody, just going at it. And then I'd go back at night and do weights. Every day I did it. Didn't think twice about it. It was my life. And when the back injury happened, I was out for 2 years. Instead of going to the track, I'm sitting on the sofa watching the news, drinking coffee and in the morning. And I was unable to do anything because the pain was so severe. And when I had the surgery and things turned around quickly, all of a sudden, going and doing those things in the morning, I hadn't done it. And it was tough and it was hard. So I didn't have that same tenacity and desire to tackle it, every day. And so getting back, that's another reason why I might want to do this, Mike, is because I want to get that back. I want to know that I had it, because so many times I think back and I say, what would have happened if I didn't get injured? I just would have kept going and doing it, and I'd be so much better than where I am now. And that's just an excuse. And I gotta understand that it's an excuse, and you gotta put it behind you and go forward.
Do you think the back injury is due to like the style of heavy lifting for bodybuilding you've done your whole life?
I've thought about that a lot, and I think it's a combination of things. I think that in life, just generally speaking, even men my age that have never, and women my age have never done the things that I've done, also have back injuries. It's a common thing. But yeah, when I was in college, I was doing I joined a powerlifting gym, and I got into heavy squats, and that was the only time in my life I've ever lifted really heavy. And it was doing my legs, which is so important for the foundation of any sport. And I would do it on a Monday and on a Thursday, and I would still be in pain on Thursday, even in my lower back. And quite frankly, I really believe that I didn't fully understand the proper form of doing a squat. Even though I was lifting the heavy weights that I was doing, I didn't understand it. And today I try and teach that. And my trainers at my gym are exceptional at that. There's ways to avoid it. And I think that part of it I didn't avoid because of my lack of knowledge still, even at that time. It was just brute strength that I was doing. And I look at a lot of guys today. I watch guys my age, a little younger, some even a little older, still lifting heavy weights. And I'm envious and I'm mesmerized and my mind is boggled at how can they still be doing these things and not be in pain and not, you know, having the times that I had in the pain. I don't get it, but there's people that are doing it. Maybe it was their technique that was so much better than mine.
We've seen like a cultural shift in like working out now, where it's like CrossFit and HIIT workouts and run clubs and all these things like that. And you spent the better part of your life training on like heavy weightlifting, getting ready for bodybuilding. With the experience that you have now, someone that's in their 20s or even in their 30s, would you recommend? What would you recommend to them?
I'll tell you, I can answer that quickly because I say it every day. Lighter weights, higher reps, shorter rest. Lighter weights, higher reps, shorter rest. And you will build strength, endurance, and a fat-burning machine, bro. A fat-burning machine. You're burning them. And it's that combination. It's funny, though, bodybuilding and the people that are in bodybuilding never want to change. They still want to do the crazy things they do. And I transferred into doing from bodybuilding into physique, which to me is much better. It's much more mainstream, you know? If you're on the beach and you see a real pro bodybuilder walking down the beach, everyone's going to look. But 98% of the people are looking and saying, he looks ridiculous. He doesn't look good. And he certainly doesn't look healthy. And when somebody doing physique walks by, it's, man, I want to look like that dude.
Yep.
You know, and there's a big difference with it. And bodybuilding, when you get on the stage for bodybuilding, you think about it, your body's supposed to be at its peak. And the reality of it is that's the most unhealthiest day of the year for you. It's the day you're on stage. You have no water in you. You're completely dehydrated. And many, many people collapse and pass out on stage. And that's not healthy. So I have never really been in that in that place.
Do you think there's a long-term health risk to do it like bodybuilding, where you're cutting weight so heavy so often for so many years? What do you think the long-term effects of that are?
It's going to depend on the individual, I believe. But it's when you say the bodybuilder, they don't want to change anything. So they want to keep going with what Arnold was doing. Man, so much has changed. And I liked what I did with the cutting process of getting ripped. Now, I graduated high school weighing about 198, 197, somewhere in that range. I'm 204, 205 today. And I've been out of high school almost 50 years. Almost 50 years, and I've stayed at that weight. So I hear all the time, I did my last show, now I'm gonna bulk up. So they're gonna go from 220 on stage to 270 and then take it off again. Now, who is going to think that that's healthy in any way, shape, or form? I don't get it. I don't understand that. And the cardio oftentimes is walking on the treadmill, 3 miles an hour, 35 minutes. And it's like, try something different. And here's the other thing. I say to people all the time, I'll say, listen, you got a show next Saturday. I said, all right, I got a question for you. You're not going to be able to answer till after the show. I want you to tell me, I'm going to ask you after the show, when did you look the best? Was it Friday before the show? Was it Saturday? Or was it Sunday, the day after the show? And every time, virtually every time, you know what they tell me? Sunday. And you know what happens Saturday after the show?
They eat a lot.
They eat a lot. Everything they can. So doesn't simple logic tell you, let's just take the calendar and move it back a fucking day. Let's just move it back one day. Go out on Friday night and eat what you're going to eat on Saturday night, and you're going to wake up ripped.
Yeah.
And so many people get on stage, and then they say, man, I wish the show was Sunday. I look so much better. Well, change it. And then when they go to do another show again, they don't want to change it again. They still stay with it. You made the mistake. You learned it. You said it. But yet you're going to go back to the other thing because your coach is saying it. Your coach is there to help you. But if you feel strongly, having gone through a process, that you know something different might look better, then do it.
I also want to go back to the day that these bodybuilders step on stage when they're at their physical, most unhealthy version of themselves, right? We do endurance sports. So truthfully, our race day is the most unhealthy day of the entire year. Like
donuts, you know, candy, whatever you can get your hands on.
But not even just that, pushing yourself to the absolute limit. Like you physically don't think you can do any more. You're one less calorie away from literally being knocked out, like literally being totally out of sorts. But I think that it's interesting, and why people push themselves to that level is because I have found on those days where I feel like I'm the closest I've ever been physically to death. Like you feel this awakening almost. Right. You feel the sense of like, I'm putting myself in a place where I don't believe any other person would want to venture. Yeah. And there's this strength that comes from that. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I do. I get that way in the height of the training for a show, the same way that you do. And but how did you feel? Let me ask you, did it feel like, man, I really accomplished something to feel like this? Is that how you feel?
I would say once it's done, I feel a lot better. When I always ask myself the same question when I am in a race like that. When I'm 14 hours into a 15-hour race, I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Yeah. Genuinely, I'm like, why did I think that this was a nice way to send it Saturday? But the second it's done, that's where that euphoria, that's where that spiritual sense of like, I didn't know I was even capable of this.
So when you cross that finish line, bro, that euphoria, that feeling, that high is what makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? Yep. And that's just a great feeling.
Talk about what happens after that, because I was talking to the boys about this. Euphoria, right when the race is over. Yeah. Maybe actually 3 hours later,
boom. Crash. And what's the crash feel?
Depressed, like what did I just do all this for? Like a lot of these like weird intrusive thoughts of like, did I give myself the best effort I could? It's the artist thing. You immediately go into the self-critique, and if you don't have something to look forward to right after that, it's like this pit of despair.
So how long is you training for this type of a race?
We didn't train very much for this.
For the Quest for the Crest, it was 2 years. It was a 2-year process to get there.
About it. It's 2 years of chasing. Yeah. Chasing and chasing. And it's over in a day. You just hit the nail on the head. Well, you need something else. Mm-hmm. Knowing the pitfalls is what can make us better. So what's the pitfall is the crash. So let's come up with something. And we have, in bodybuilding, we have our own crash. And that's the body dysmorphia. I mean, dude, if you're on the stage and you're looking amazing on a Saturday, why should you feel Tuesday or Wednesday you can't take your shirt off?
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Yeah. That what could you have possibly done to be depressed by in 3 days that you can't take your damn shirt off? That's not right. So it just isn't right. And
how do you counteract that? Like, how did you during your career?
It's doing something that I've got to get back to it. So with us, remember, we eat clean all day for 12, 14 weeks. Some people that need more, 20 weeks. And then when you go back to a quote unquote normal diet, you don't feel good by Tuesday or Wednesday again. So I think what you need to do is you have to ease your way back into eating where you're not clean, but you have to put something in place that you can avoid that. So maybe it's a new workout,
like a reverse dieting,
a new challenge somewhere that you have to do, because a lot of people in bodybuilding have that body dysmorphia where they're like, oh, I just look terrible. I look bad.
I think another issue that we kind of run into is when you do these things like a bodybuilding competition, a long endurance race, as soon as you're like you said, you train so hard for so long, and then as soon as you're done, you set a bar, you push the bar up, right? Like you just did this crazy thing, like you ran 32 miles, you won your event, and then all of a sudden it all just stops. And it's like for the next, unless you pick something up immediately, like you just feel like a piece of shit. Like mentally, it's like I'm not, like I could be doing so much more. Like for 6 weeks, you just ran 30 miles a week, and then it's like you ran 0 this week. And it's just like the mental toll that takes on you. It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah. And you're probably thinking, can I get back to doing what I was doing?
That drove me insane after this last race in May. I spent 2 years working for one day. That day came. It was the hardest day I have ever lived, and obviously we have our race in May, so definitely not, but might be one of the hardest days of my life, but arguably the proudest I've ever been of myself. And you prove to yourself that 15 hours in a day, you can work, you can grind, you can hustle. The funny part about that is that next day, that moment of like, oh my gosh, 2 years, one day, now it's done. Who am I? To get back to that place, I know what it took to, like, do I want to do that again?
Are you willing to go and do it again?
That's the biggest question.
We make sure we book it. So we book the next one before you do the next.
I think it's important for you to take out your phone and open up notes and dictate. Basically do a voice diary of how you feel, and keep it day by day. So then when you reread it down the road, when you're getting ready to do it again, you can avoid the pitfalls of that crash. And I think that's important. But dude, I mean, 2 years for one day. Usain Bolt, 4 years for 10 seconds.
It's crazy. 9
seconds. 4 years. And we have Olympians training at Johnny O's. And we had a guy in there, CJ Green. He was in Paris this past year. It was his third Olympics. And it's all day, bro. It's all day. You know, it's at the track at 7. They're stretching. They're doing all their track work. And then it's, 45 minutes to a half hour to 45 minutes over at my gym doing strength and conditioning and doing work like that. And it's on and on and on. And they're getting timed. And sprinters, swimmers, their progress is measured by 1,000th of a second, Swimmers will talk about being intense. They'll shave their eyebrows to get an advantage in the pool.
Yep.
So they're going, Usain Bolt, 9 seconds, bro. And he's trained 4 years for it. Imagine if you false start. I mean, how do you overcome that? I mean, our tribulations are nothing compared to that. Nothing.
On the world's biggest stage.
Yes.
I think on the flip side of all that though is once you do complete whatever it was, the competition, the race, it opens you up to realize like if you can do that, like you can do in all areas of your life, right? Like you can take exactly what you just did, that same discipline, motivation, that training, and it'll show up everywhere else.
Absolutely. And I talk about that pretty much every day. When somebody comes into my gym and we're talking, and they're saying, you know, I got to get back into it. I'm a former athlete. I did this. I stop them and I say, you know, don't let me ever hear you say that you're a former athlete ever again, because you're an athlete. It's a frame of mind. You know, the fact that you crossed the podium, the stage, and picked up a diploma doesn't change your mental thoughts. You know, what you need to do is sit down and focus on, what did I do to get to that level? And if you take those, you know, the main three attributes, hard work, sacrifice, discipline, if you do those three things and now take them and you put them into life outside the gym, outside your sport, you're going to be successful. You're going to be successful. It's taking what made you successful in sports and putting it into life that makes you better. And you will succeed at that too. And that's a big deal. I was asked yesterday to write a recommendation for a Division I football player. And what I write and what I tell these people is, when I sit down to do an interview for somebody that's looking for a job or an internship or whatever it might be, first thing I do is, when I look at that resume, I look for student athlete. And if they're a student athlete, they go right to the top with me. And I tell those student athletes, I say to them, look, you're going to be doing a lot of interviews in your life. I want to give you some advice. When somebody asks you the question, why should I look at you over somebody else? You tell them, I'm a student athlete. That sets me apart. I had to get up every morning at 5 a.m. I couldn't go to parties at night. I had to sacrifice at 18, 19 years old. First time I was ever away from home in my life. I had the opportunity to go out and have fun and no restrictions. But I went to bed every night because I had to get up at 5 a.m. because the school believed in me enough to give me a scholarship, and I'm gonna take the most out of it. So it's important to understand. Again, it's important to understand your accomplishments and understand that there are times when you don't be fucking humble. Talk about what you did to better yourself. Because if you can better yourself and you're not humble for that hour of that interview and you get that job, think of how many people you're going to be able to help, including yourself, but other people as well. And that's giving back, man.
I think I was thinking about this because I played football my whole life, and football was my whole life. Like, there was no other part of me besides just playing the game of football. Until I was in high school, had a basically career-ending injury, ankle blowed out. I dealt with so much just complete crumbling of myself, like my identity, right as soon as that career is over. And I was never athletically gifted in the way of, like, again, I'm 5'6", $160. I'm not playing in the NFL at this size, but all of that tenacity and work, I got a lot of my satisfaction out of the fact that nobody was going to outwork me. Nobody was going to put in the type of work that I was going to put in. Nobody was going to mentally prepare like I was going to. And then when I got out of that and got out of football, there were 3 years of nothing. And it wasn't until we started I started my first business that I got that feeling again. What gives you that feeling of competition? Is it Johnny O's Gymnasium now?
Yeah, there's a lot to opening a business and fear of failure, and when you have your name on the door, it brings it up a couple levels as well. So you do want to, you always want to succeed, and I think what drives us, what drives me is researching motivation, reading about it, looking at Instagram posts and saving them. I got folders where I'll go back and what I notice is I'm at my best when I'm self-motivated. And when you do something for 40, 50 years, you got to be good. And you know, I tell people, I have a fucking library of stories in my mind of things I've done, things I've wanted to do, things I still want to do, and things I've seen and read. And I use those. You know, you don't want to, I was going to the track 3 days a week, running those sprints. Every day you don't want to be there, you know? Some days you get there and you just don't have it. And, you know, you got to take a few more seconds or minutes to get yourself psyched up and motivated to go and do it. And sometimes those days that you don't want to do it turn out to be the best days. And you just have to, search for things that are going to keep you on track and keep you motivated.
Going into the gym a little bit, Johnny's O's gym, best gym in Boca. Tell us, I remember you were telling us a story, I don't remember the whole thing, but how you came about the gymnasium, right? It was like Arnold and the whole...
Yeah. That was Arnold. And I was just out in LA, man. I missed Arnold at Gold's Gym. I was dying to see him. And I went to Venice Beach and Gold's Gym, and I missed him. And but Arnold was growing up, Arnold was it, man. You know, he had the whole package. He had the physique, he had the looks, and he had charisma like no one's business, man. He just had charisma. And I still go back and watch Pumping Iron probably once a year, that documentary. And I say this all the time, but it's funny but true. I was a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger's before he could really speak English. And in 1977, when the documentary Pumping Iron came out, they were making a tour throughout the country, and they were stopping in all the major cities, and they came to Boston. And I remember going, when I heard about it, I went in the first day the tickets went on sale, and I went into Boston, and I bought tickets to see the premiere of Pumping Iron at the Exeter Street Theater in Boston, which is no longer there. It was there forever. And I remember walking in on the night and looking around, all these, I was 17, 16, 17, all these guys who were sitting in there that were huge, and every seat was taken. And I went with a friend, and we were about 10 rows back, and we watched the movie. I was just in heaven. Well, when the movie was over, the lights dimmed in the theater, and a spotlight came on, and there was Arnold. He was like 15, 20 feet away from me. And he spoke for a bit. And then Ed Corney, who was in the movie, posed. And he was like this really he was like a ballerina. And he was posed. He was just amazing. And, oh, man, I mean, that just motivated. I wanted to go home and lift right then. Years later, when I graduated high school, I worked at a gym, and it was right down the street from the Kennedy compound. And John Kennedy Jr., who was my age, I think we're 4 or 5 months apart, he came in, and all I wanted to do was ask him about Arnold. And I remember talking to him and asking him about Arnold, and because he was dating his cousin Maria, who they ended up getting married. But again, fast forward a few years, and my wife had a spa, and a salon and a spa, and Maria would come, and Arnold would come to get his hair cut. So I had never met him, and I really wanted to meet him, you know, and I knew he was coming in. It was coming in on a Saturday morning, and I was all excited Friday night. I could barely sleep because I was going to go meet him. And I walk into the salon, and he's there, and he says, "I understand you own a gymnasium." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And I'm thinking to myself, gymnasium, wow. No one says gymnasium, but Arnold's saying it. That's it. From that point on, guys, I use that word every day. "Hey, what are you up to?" "I'm going to the gymnasium." "What are you doing?" "I just left the gymnasium." And people, gymnasium? Yep. And that was it. And I kept doing it. So when I came around to opening up Johnny O's, my partner said to me, Joe, he says, "Johnny, you know, just take the ball and run with it. I don't care what you do, and I don't care what you name it, but your name has to be in the name of the gym. So I'm thinking Johnny O's Fitness, and came up with all types of stuff. And then it was Johnny O's Gymnasium. And that was it, man. I was stuck on that. And I remember, Joe was saying, yeah, it's kind of old school. And, I'm like, that's what we are. We're a little bit of both. And it took off. And I would love to have the opportunity to tell Arnold that story, because...
Well, he watches the pod.
What's that?
No, I'm just kidding. One thing I wanted to commend you on was you have built a community at Johnny O's gym like I've never seen. Why do you think that's so important to fitness and to Johnny O's?
And how did you build it?
Yeah.
I think the first rule in life, man, is treat people the way you want to be treated, And who wants to be treated disrespectfully? And going into thousands of gyms over 5 decades, how many times have I seen some musclehead sitting and gives you a nod? There's no conversation. There's no nothing. And it's like, look, you own a restaurant. Who's the first person that's representing you? The valet. Not the hostess, the valet. You got to be on top of them. And in my business, it's the front desk person. You come in. And in my gym, David Dixon is my managing partner. And he handles that. And the staff works the desk, it's the same way. But you got to understand that they got a lot of options. There's a lot of options. And I'm really grateful they chose me. Now, I also feel that I have the best place for them, and I really believe that. And it's just a matter of conveying that to them and letting them understand it. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't say a dozen times to people, hey, I appreciate your business, because I know they have other options. And it's just it's a matter of doing that no matter what business you're in. That's how you have to be. But how many times have you gone to whatever business it is, a restaurant, an office, anything that they're in business, and you walk away and you say, my God, they're making money in spite of themselves. They are rude. They're out of line and doing everything that they do. They don't even... I walked into a restaurant one time, and the owner of the restaurant was at the hostess stand. Now, if you're down doing something, you can see someone stood in front of you. This is how long it would take to do the right thing. Give me 1 second. I just got to fill this in. Didn't do that. He went on and on and on. And it gets to the point that it's like, dude, you're not doing me a favor for being here. I'm doing you the favor. I'm coming in. And people don't get it. But now that I just said that, think about it. You're going to go into businesses and you're going to walk out saying, how the hell are they doing this well and treat people like this? Happens all the time. So just a simple rule of thumb. How do you want to be treated? And treat the people the same way you expect to be treated.
Yeah. I noticed you're always there, always walking around. You know everybody by their first name. I think it was super cool. Like, that was a great experience when we came out there again, even though you kicked my ass that day. But yeah, dude, I've been to a lot of gyms, and for sure your gym is my favorite. But for people that have never been to Johnny O's, they're not familiar with you. They're not familiar with the gym. What would you say that separates?
Vibe, baby, vibe. When you walk into my place, and everything I do is to get the people into the gym, because you can't feel the vibe on Instagram. You can't feel it on my website. You can't experience it in any way until you walk in the door. And once you walk in the door, you know that this place is built and it's conducive to results. There's no going light at my place. I walked through it yesterday, and I was out back, and I went from out back into the lobby, and I still notice this every day, and it makes me so proud. I look around, and everybody's fucking working. Everybody. Young, old, man, women. Everybody is working. So when you walk in, whether you know it or not, you're getting motivated by the people around you. And guess what? You don't know this, but you're motivating them too. You know, no one, and you know, when I used to go to the big box gyms, the LA Fitnesses, the UFits, the Planet Fitnesses, they're the complete opposite of me. I have meetings every day, and we say in these meetings, what can we do to change these people's lives? And you know what they do in those big box gyms? And let me tell you, this is a fact because I was told this by one of the owners of one of these big box gyms. And they have meetings to say, how can we sell memberships? And lots of them, but they don't come and use the gym. And I had somebody ask me, very good friend of mine, one of my closest friends in the world. He's a developer in Dubai, highly successful, and he's a great business. He said, Johnny, what happens if you're out, like say in a supermarket, and you see somebody that's a member of your gym and they haven't been in a while? Like, how do you feel? And he was saying, in the tone that he was saying, he was be like, I should be embarrassed. Like, oh my God, I'm taking this guy's money. He's not coming in. I walk right up to him and I said, dude, where you been? Where you been? You got to come in. Will you join my gym? You didn't join to not come, okay? So whatever's going on right now, let's get over it. I'm going to call you tomorrow. I'm going to set up a time for you to come in and work with one of my trainers as my guest, and we're going to get you back in the loop.
That's awesome.
And that's what you got to do. And that's how I feel. So, you know, we're not actors. When you believe in something, people know that you're being honest. And, you know, we can't be disingenuous. You have to be that person that believes in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're in the wrong business.
Also, nobody will believe you.
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They should be smart enough to understand that. But that's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. It's vibe. And you know what I tell people? And I proudly tell them. I tell them this every day too. I say, you know what you got to do? Go and visit as many gyms as you want. Go in, get a free workout, and try out the gym. And then when you're done looking at all those gyms, take a step back and ask yourself one question. Which gym is going to put me in the position to get the results that I want to get? And join that gym. It doesn't have to be the gym around the corner. It doesn't have to be the one with all the girls going to or the good-looking guys. You join the gym that's going to put you in a position to get the best results that you want to get. And I say that all the time confidently because I feel that they're going to come back to mine because we have that vibe. And they tell me every day that.
You created a product that is in and of itself, there is no competition for it.
Yeah,
that's the end of the day.
Man.
So
yeah.
For everyone listening though, how can they support you? Like your Instagrams, what kind of, are you guys running any deals right now? Where's the gym?
Yeah, you know, we're always, you know, the best deal that I run every day, bro, best deal I run every day is that we're gonna help you get results. So I tell people, and oftentimes I'll tell people this right after they've given me their money, because when you give money, sometimes that's when it's over. And what I say to my staff is, once they've given you the money, that's when it begins. You know, that's when it begins. And I'll tell people all the time, I say to them, look, we're all human. You're getting back into this. We're going to help you get this program. We're going to help you get the results. But you're going to hit a wall someday. You're going to hit a hurdle. Your life is going to get in the way in one form or another. And when it does, that's when I want you to reach out to me and let's sit down and figure out how we're going to get past this. And that's what we do. And you know, one other thing that no one else will do, and as an owner, is I give them my personal mobile number, and I'll say that to them. And the other thing that I do, and I get a kick out of this sometimes because I hear this a lot. You know, somebody will join, and I keep pretty good records, man, and I make calls every day, and I'll call somebody and that joined a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and I'll call them up and I'll say, hey, Mike, Johnny. at Johnny O's. I'm just following up with you, man. Just want to see how everything was going for you. And and there's usually a slight pause, right? And they're like, because your brain thinks faster. You know, you're listening when they hear it's Johnny from Johnny O's. They're thinking, is my card not go through? Did I leave something there? What's going on? Why am I calling? And they almost every time somebody says, man, I can't believe you called me. and the better ones are when I'll be talking and I'll say, hey, this is Johnny at Johnny O's. Just wanted to welcome you to the gym, see how things were going. If you want to bring someone in, you let me know. And that's kind of, it's going great. Everything's going great. And who is this again? It's Johnny. Oh, you're Johnny. Wow, I can't believe you're calling me. Well, why shouldn't I? Right? But I do it because I really want to set myself apart. And
competitive greatness. That's what keeps this show alive. That's what keeps people like you dominating in markets that are so competitive, like a Boca Raton, like a Fort Lauderdale. I have one more question for you. What does grit mean to you?
Taking the time to put in the effort and going above and beyond what normal people do, you know?
I love that you said taking the time, because everybody says, I don't have time. You have to take your time. You have to take your time back. So I love that.
And this is a good time of year. In a sense that I've been saying this, but I'm going to say it a lot more because this is a time of year that everybody says, I got to get it, make a commitment and get into shape. And there's going to be two types of people right now that are out there. Some that in 6 months, they're going to be complaining that they didn't start something. And then the other group of people are going to be celebrating their accomplishments. So the message is, who are you going to be? Who are you going to be, baby? Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, because it's that simple. Stop making excuses. Stop thinking about, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Stop saying that I don't have the right program, or it's too competitive, or I just can't do it. Stop it. Come in and do it. Get a plan. Follow a plan. I tell people every day, like, you know, I'll walk up to people and I'll say, what are you doing today? And they'll say, I'm going to do back and buys. Okay. Did you know that last night? Did you think well, yeah. And I'm like, well, you need to plan tomorrow, today, you know, and you don't wake up in the morning and dictate your day by how your night went. How did I sleep? Was I out too late? Did I have one more tequila than I should have? You know what? If you're drinking that one more tequila, you better be, before you're putting it up to your lips, you better be saying to yourself, tomorrow I'm still going, no matter what.
Because I got a plan.
You don't wake up and dictate what your fucking day is going to be like. Make the plan the night before.
Yep. Hell yeah.
And so I do that a lot. I go up to people a lot and I say, You want to be successful in here? Come in here with the plan. Don't you walk into this gym and look around and say, I'm going to start on that machine over there because no one's on it. You come in here with the plan. And when you come in here with the plan, your odds of succeeding are going to be much better. And another thing that I do is when people join, and this is the time of year that we get a ton of people like this, they come in and it took them months to come in the door. And I realize that. And again, I'll even tell them, look, here's your credit card back. You just signed up and we got your money, okay? But now is when it starts. You think I'm not going to be on top of you and finding out what's going on? And I'll put down, depending on the individual, it might be 5 days, it might be 2 weeks. I'm calling them. I'm going to see what's going on. And then I'm going to go up to them after they've been here a few days, and I'm going to say, how's everything going? You looking good? I like what you're doing. I'm watching you. I want next time you come in for a class, I want you to text me. Here's my number. I want you to sit with me And I want you to come to meet me, and I want you to make 4, 5, maybe 6 maximum fitness goals that you want to reach over the next 6 months to a year. And I said, I want them written down, and I'm gonna be following up with you. They like that. People want they want to be accountable. They want to be accountable. They want somebody that. And I'm telling you, kids want that. Children want that. And they need that. But look, you know, I'll tell people sometimes, you know, we're talking to them, and I'll say, you know, Mike, what do you do for a living? I've never asked you. And before you have a chance to respond, I'll say, you know what, Mike, don't tell me yet. Because whatever you do, I can't do your job. I can't do it. So why should I expect you to do mine?
Them. That's crazy.
It comes down to logic, doesn't it? Simplicity. It really does.
And where can people find the gym, and where can people find you on social media?
Johnny O's Gymnasium, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, our website. We're Google us. We're out there.
Johnny Olsen Fitness. So you got your own page.
Yeah, I got my own page, Johnny Olsen Fitness, and we've got Johnny O's Gymnasium. And you know, we're always, anybody that wants to come in first time, you're coming in for free. We want to talk to you. We want to help you accomplish the things you haven't been able to do in your life before. And we'll talk to you about them. And we ask questions to get the people to talk about why they have failed in the past. And look, it's no shame. 99% of the people have failed, and in many things, and that's just life. But if we can come and find ways to get better and reach our goals, that's important. And we're very willing to do that all the time.
Well, Johnny, you're the man.
You're the man.
Thank you for coming on. It is always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
Always have the best shoe game too. Got to shout it out.
It's facts. That's
my Tatums, baby.
Come on now.
But yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
I want to see you at the gym.
Maybe part 2. We'll do this at the gym.
Let's bring the whole team in.
Let's do it.
We'll do a workout and then a podcast right after.
Yeah. And a cold plunge.
And a cold plunge.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Johnny.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you. Anytime.